Well, hello, my name is Daryl, and welcome to the stripper deck. This looks like an ordinary pack of cards, but actually it's very, very special. Allow me to demonstrate. First of all, I want you to see they're all here, they're all different, they're very well mixed, and I'd like you to use your imagination. Now, imagine that all the black cards, the clubs and the spades, are oil. They represent oil. And all the red cards, the hearts and the diamonds, they represent water. You might think of water from the Red Sea. Oil and water are not supposed to mix. Even though I shuffle the red and black cards together several times, you can actually let a spectator from the audience mix the deck as well. Anytime you'd like, you just wait a few moments, you allow the cards to rest. And just like if you put oil and water inside of a glass jar and you shake it up, eventually the oil will sink down to the bottom and the water will rise to the top, just like this deck of cards. If you look very closely, you will see all of the oil, all of the black cards are now on the bottom, and all of the red cards, all of the water cards are up on the top. Now, if this was the only trick that this deck did, I think it would be a tremendous value. But that's just the very beginning. Basically what this deck is used to control cards. Now, I just controlled 26 cards. Well, actually, I controlled all 52, because if you control the 26 black cards, automatically you've controlled the 26 red cards. I'll show you what I mean. What if instead of one card or 26 cards, you had one or two cards selected? You can have any card selected from anywhere in the deck. It makes absolutely no difference. I'll just take, say, for example, this one. Now, I don't want to look at it, but what I will do is I'll hold it up so that you could see it. You see the card? That is the selection. And I'm going to ask you to place the card back into the pack anywhere you'd like. In fact, I won't even hold the deck. I will just cascade them onto the table. Anytime you'd like, just toss the card into the pack. So that's what the spectator does. They throw their card in, and you say it's hopelessly lost. That looks pretty fair, doesn't it? In fact, you can let the spectator shuffle the deck as like this or like this. There are many different ways to mix up the cards. Anytime you want to find the selected card, you snap the fingers, and the card will rise all by itself to the very top position. So that's what it's like to control one card. But what if you wanted to go one step further? Let's say you wanted to control, for example, the four aces. Okay? I'll take out the four aces, the ace of diamonds. We have next the ace of clubs. There should be the ace of hearts, and lastly the ace of spades. Now watch very closely. I do virtually nothing because the deck does it all by itself. I'll just place the four aces into different parts of the pack, and I'm not counting. I have no idea the exact location of the aces. I just know that they're in different parts. Okay? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 aces lost in the pack. Once again, you can allow the spectator to shuffle the deck, or you could shuffle the deck. It's entirely up to you. And anytime you want those aces, all you have to do is very simply hold the deck like this, snap your fingers, and those four aces will rise to the top. Are there any questions up to this point? Well, before I go into the details on how this is done, let's talk a little bit about the history. This is not a new idea. The stripper deck, also known as tapered cards or the wizard deck, that's what it was called when I was a little boy. It's one of the oldest secret devices in card magic. Now, card cheats, professional hustlers, card cheats have been using the stripper edge to locate specific cards for literally hundreds of years. Now, this secret technique was mentioned in a book, Nouvelles Récréations Physique et Mathématiques by Goyot. It was published in Paris in 1769. So like I say, it's not a new idea, but there are still billions and billions of people that have no idea what this is all about. Well, I'm about to teach you the details, and to explain exactly how this is done, I've taken the liberty of getting some cards from a file folder, just to make it a little easier to follow. A normal deck of cards, the edges are parallel. Very important. That means if you turn a card over end for end, it's still parallel. But a stripper deck is a little bit different. These are cut tapered at an angle. So it's wider at one end and narrower at the other end. That means if any card or any group of cards is turned over end for end, you can instantly find that card, because all you have to do is hold the wide ends at one end, and you can strip out the wide end of the one reversed card from the narrow end of the deck. And by the way, that's why it's called a stripper deck, because you strip out that card. Now, just to make it a little bit easier to follow, for the rest of this demonstration, I've got a special stripper deck that I have secretly prepared. Now, by the way, I want you to know, this is just to make the explanations easier, okay? Don't do this in real life, all right? What I've done is I've taken all of the cards and I've put a mark, big wide felt pen mark on the wide end of each card. So that means any card that's turned over end for end, no matter how many times the deck is shuffled, you can find it anytime you want. Just hold the wide end in one hand, strip on the narrow end of the deck, which means the wide end of the card will come out. So it's already on the top. That's why it was so easy to find. And there it is. Okay? Now, by the way, you do not ever hold a stripper deck like this and go like that and pull out the selected card. That is a dead giveaway. Much better is to do this secret technique. Hide it. Don't let anybody know what you're doing. For example, if you have the wide end away from you, the narrow end towards you, that means the wide end of the reverse card is towards you. A very easy way to control it to the bottom is to hold the deck like this. With your other hand, just lift up. Right now I'm lifting up on that reversed wide card, and I cut the deck at that point. That looks very fair, doesn't it? Well, that automatically puts the reversed card on the bottom. In the exact same way, if you wanted to, you can have it turn the other way. So now the wide end is towards you, the wide end of the selected card or the reversed card is away from you. You can just as easily hold the deck in your hand like this. With your left thumb, you push down on that edge. So I'm pushing down on the edge of the wide card. You cut the deck at that point, and that will bring the card to the very top of the deck. All right? Another way that's even easier is you could lie to your audience and you say, I'm going to make this very, very difficult. Very difficult. I'm going to see if I can find your card behind my back. Oh, very difficult. Well, actually, it's very easy behind your back. All you do is you hold the deck, you strip out the card, and there it is. Well, here's something interesting. I discovered this by accident. I collect playing cards, and I have thousands of decks from all over the world. Here's a deck I probably bought about 15 or 20 years ago, and it's called a deck of steamboat cards. Lovely, lovely steamboat cards. These are very old, and these are the cards that were actually used on the riverboats, the riverboat gamblers and all that kind of thing. I bought them because they had a steamboat joker. And this is what the backs look like. This deck is very old, very well worn, lots of corners missing and things like that. But it wasn't until about 2 or 3 weeks ago that I discovered by accident that this deck is a stripper deck. Any card that's turned over end for end, say for example the 9 of spades, end for end, goes in there. Doesn't matter how many times the cards are shuffled, anytime you want that card, you just strip it out. Boom, you've got it. So that sort of appeals to me. That means that this deck, this old deck of steamboat cards, was probably actually used on the riverboats, and it was used by an actual cheater to fleece his players. Well, let's talk a little bit now about how to mix your stripper deck. Okay? Now, this is just to make it easy to follow. Remember, I've got this deck with all the cards marked at one end. That's only the wide end. And as long as you keep the cards so that the orientation is the same, you can change the actual order of the cards in many different ways. The easiest way is just a straight, ordinary cut. Okay? A straight cut, ordinary cut, or multiple cuts. It doesn't make any difference. You can cut them onto the table, or you can cut them several times like this or like this. As long as you don't turn any of the cards over, end for end, you're safe. Now, in the Las Vegas casinos, they have a thing called the strip shuffle. They do this after a riffle shuffle. They take small packets off the top, and they strip them onto the table. See? That mixes the cards very thoroughly, but it does not change the orientation. Another thing you can do is the overhand shuffle. For those who are not familiar with the overhand shuffle, you hold the pack like this, fingers at the outer end, thumb at the inner end, and your left thumb takes a small block of cards off the top into the hand. A second block off the top above the first block, the third on top of the second, and you just keep going until you run out of cards. So this is a simple overhand shuffle. It's a perfectly good way to mix up cards. It does mix up the cards quite thoroughly, but it does not change the orientation of any of the cards in the pack. So that's a good shuffle to use with a stripper deck. Similar to the overhand shuffle is the Hindu shuffle. This is the Hindu shuffle, same idea, except you hold the cards like this, and you take small blocks off the front end, you let them drop into the left hand. Hindu shuffle like this. The Asian shuffle, in Asian countries very often you'll see people shuffle cards this way. It's very similar to the Hindu shuffle, just a different grip. Another thing you can do is a standard riffle shuffle, like in the casinos. Great way to shuffle cards. Break the cards into 2 packets, riffle the corners together, push them in. That's it. That is a legitimate riffle shuffle, or in the hands riffle shuffle, the same idea. remember, any kind of shuffling procedure that does not turn any of the cards over end for end will work. Now, having said that, here's a few shuffles that do not work. The first one I call my dad's shuffle. This is how my dad used to shuffle cards. He didn't mean anything by it. It's just the way he did it. And I don't believe I've seen anybody else use this particular technique, but it's possible that there are others out there. What he would do is he would cut the cards like this, and then he would shuffle them this way. Well, as you can see, that definitely messes up the orientation of the stripper deck. So if you see somebody shuffle cards like that or something similar to this, it's a good idea to find out in advance, to know this before you start doing your stripper deck trick. Similar to the dad's shuffle is what we call the turn shuffle, and this is used by casinos. They cut the cards into 2 packets, and purposely and openly they turn one group over end for end. This is to prevent advantage players from doing a thing called playing the turn. So they purposely will turn one group over before they shuffle them together, either like this or usually with the thumbs like this. That's a turn shuffle. Washing the cards, another technique used in casinos, especially breaking in a new deck. This is, believe it or not, a very effective way of mixing up a deck of cards. Okay? But it's really bad for the stripper deck because it turns cards over end for end. You don't want that. There's only one other shuffle I'd like to mention, and that's called the rosette shuffle. Virtually nobody does this. Leonard Green does it. So it's not something you'll come across often, but if you're ever working for a magician and they just happen to have watched the Leonard Green DVDs and they do something like this, make 2 little rosettes and then just kind of mush them together, obviously that turns a lot of cards over end for end, and that messes up the stripper deck setup. If this happens, it's good to know in advance and definitely have a backup trick ready. Some kind of trick that doesn't rely on the stripper edges, okay? So if you're ready to do a stripper deck trick, you give the deck out for shuffling, somebody messes up your order or your orientation, you've got a backup trick ready to go. One more thing is if you have the deck mixed up and you need them to be separated, red cards from black cards, for example, you can always strip them out like this, do a couple of Hindu shuffles, and what that's doing is it's separating the cards. Now, you might have to do it 2 or 3 times, but eventually what's going to happen is all the cards are going to be separated, and anytime you want, you can break them into 2 groups. One will be this way, one will be this way. When you shuffle these 2 groups together with either a turn shuffle or this shuffle that my dad used to do, that puts everything back the way it was. So now you're all set again for your stripper deck trick. Here's a bonus shuffle. It's a shuffle that is not used just for the stripper deck. There are many other things you can do with it as well, but it comes in very, very handy if you're using the stripper deck and you happen to have a divided deck. Now, a divided deck means, for example, all of the red cards divided from all of the black cards, or all of the even cards divided from all of the odd cards. Sometimes half the deck is face up, half the deck is face down, but for this example, I'm going to cut the deck in about the middle and turn 1/2 over end for end. So this is a divided deck. Half the cards are oriented in one direction, the other half in the opposite direction. Now, the Ireland shuffle, credited to Laurie Ireland, this is a way of doing the overhand shuffle but retaining the division. It truly mixes up the cards, but it just changes the order of the 2 packets. So if we start with these cards on top, you take a small group, another small group, a 3rd and 4th small group, until you feel you're getting near the middle, the midpoint of the pack, around 26 cards. Then you start taking them one at a time. So I would start taking them one at a time a little bit early, before the midpoint, and you shuffle one at a time, running cards, until you pass the midpoint. Then you can take small blocks of cards again. So what happened is I've just taken all the cards that were at this end, and I put them on the bottom, and all the bottom cards are at the top, but they have still been divided. That's what the Ireland shuffle does. With a little bit of practice, you can actually not look. You could be talking to people. You could close your eyes, turn your head away. As long as you remember to run the middle few cards one at a time until you pass the midpoint, and then shuffle in little blocks again. It's a good, legitimate way to mix the deck, but retain your division. Okay, so that's a few of the shuffles. Let's talk a little bit about various techniques. Many, many different miscellaneous techniques. First, we'll talk about how do you get the stripped cards to the top or the bottom. Let's say you have one card reversed. It's a selected card. In this case, it's the King of Hearts. And I want to get that to the top or the bottom. The easiest way is to hold the wide end of the deck in the Hindu shuffle position. The narrow end of the deck is away from you, which means that the one reversed card is going to be the selected card. That's the card you're going to strip out. Very, very simple to hold the deck like this. Strip it out and a few cards above it like this at the same time. And those go into your left hand. Right now, the chosen card's on the bottom of that packet. You can do the rest of the Hindu shuffle, and when you're finished, it looks like all the cards are mixed, but the one chosen card has been controlled to the bottom. All right? If you want to control it to the top, you could do exactly the same thing. You riffle shuffle or you Hindu shuffle the card to the bottom, turn the deck over end for end as you square them up, pause a little bit, talk a little bit, do another Hindu shuffle, but this time because you turned the entire deck over end for end, you now have the wide end of the deck away from you, the narrow end of the deck towards you, and the very bottom card is the only card that's reversed, that's the chosen card, and the wide end of that is towards you. This is great, because if you hold the deck like this, I can feel with my fingertips there's a card on the bottom that's a little wider than the rest. So it's very easy to shuffle all these cards into the left hand, and it's very easy to retain that very last card because you're holding the wide end of it. That goes on the top like this. If you don't want to control the card to the bottom and then control it to the top, you could just as easily control it directly to the top by putting the card in and doing a Hindu shuffle with the cards face up. And the excuse for doing this is you say, I want you to see how well these cards are being mixed. Look at that. You could see they're all being mixed. Well, the bottom of a face-up deck is the same as the top of a face-down deck. So that's how you can control the card up to the top of the deck as well. Let me show you a couple of other techniques, and these are very, very nice techniques. A card is reversed strictly with a riffle shuffle. All I'm going to do is cut the deck into two groups, do one little riffle shuffle, and the card is on the top. In exactly the same way, you can just as easily control the card to the bottom. With one simple riffle shuffle, the card's in the bottom. Now, does that look fair or what? Watch what happens. The reversed card, remember this time we'll use the King of Hearts. That's a selected card, for example. If I want, I can hold the edges, the two sides of the deck like this. I can feel which one is sticking out. My fingers, right now I can feel the wide end of the reversed card is in my left hand. If I was to pull those cards to the left, what happens is that will automatically put that card, it'll strip it out, and it'll put it on the bottom of this packet. Okay? So once again, it's like this. I strip it out. I know it's on the bottom of this packet. Then when I shuffle, I just make sure I begin the shuffle with that group, and that will put the card on the bottom. Okay? Now, in the same way, if I want it to the top of the deck, watch what happens. You hold it like this. One hand holds that edge. The other hand pulls the rest of the cards away. What that does is it leaves the stripped out card on the top of the packet, which means when you shuffle the two halves together, you finish the shuffle with the half that has the selection on top, and that's how you get it to the top of the deck. So just by either stripping the cards out, putting it on the bottom of that packet and starting the shuffle with that group, you can control it to the bottom, or conversely, you can hold the deck like this, hold that packet, strip the other cards away from it. That will leave the card on the top of the pack, which means when you shuffle, it ends up on the top of the deck. So those are two very, very nice, subtle riffle shuffle methods for controlling the card to either the top or the bottom. Secret setups. This is a very subtle use for the stripper deck. If you happen to be doing a trick that requires a setup, say for example a key card or a card you're going to use as a force card, let's just say for example you want to use the Queen of Spades as either a key card or a force card. You start with that card reversed. The cards could be shuffled, they could be cut. I have no idea where that key card is at this point, but anytime I want it, I can bring it to the top of the deck in any one of a number of different ways, and I'm ready to do my trick. So in this case, the key card was the Queen of Spades. If I want to force it, for example, it's on the top ready to go. In the same way, if you want to use the four aces, for example, you could have the four aces reversed. So what I'm going to do is just take out the four aces, openly reverse them. Now, you don't do this in front of the audience, of course. This is your secret preparation. So you're going to do a trick using the four aces. They're reversed in the deck. You can start by showing the deck very well mixed. You can mix them a little bit more in front of everyone. But when you're ready to do your trick that requires the four aces to be, for example, on the top of the deck, you just do your little shuffle and you're ready to start. And of course, you've got your four aces right where they need to be. In exactly the same way, you could have all of the red cards reversed and in the different orientation from the black cards. I'll show you what I mean. I will turn all of the red cards so that they're facing in one direction or oriented in one direction. They're all going to be face up. And the black cards will be oriented in the opposite direction. Now this is an effect. I mean, this could be an actual trick, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's the first trick I actually did. But I'm talking now about using this as a secret setup, a secret preparation. So it looks like the deck is thoroughly shuffled, and they really are. If you're going to do an effect, for example, like Out of This World, a wonderful, wonderful trick, you might want to ask your local magic shop about that. And to do this, you have to start by having the red and the black cards separated. So you use a stripper deck, and the cards are mixed, they're thoroughly shuffled. When you're ready to start the trick, unbeknownst to the audience, you have secretly separated all the red cards from the black cards. And now you can do the Out of This World trick, or any one of a number of tricks that require a divided deck. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about how to reverse either a card or a group of cards in the deck, secretly reversing the card. One simple way is to just dribble the cards from hand to hand. You have a spectator call out the word stop at any point. That will be their selected card. Now here's what I would do, is I would say, look at your card, don't let me see what it is, and now put it back in the deck anywhere you want as I dribble them either on the table or between my hands. What I've just done is I turned the entire deck over end for end, so now the selected card is the only card that's reversed. Now it's done one step at a time. First, the card is selected. The deck is in my left hand dealing position. What I do is I take it with the right hand in a biddle grip, and I start to turn it face towards the audience as I turn away. So now they look at the card, they let everybody see. When I put the deck back into my left hand, I put it back in this way. So I have secretly turned the deck over end for end. So that means no matter where the selected card goes into the pack, anytime you want, you can strip it out and reveal it by your favorite method. There are many ways to do this. Here's another one. This is a very subtle technique. Subtlety, that's the important thing. Do not do this and say, take a card out, okay, and now put it back. That's just tipping the gaff. You don't want to do that. Be subtle. So here's another subtle way. A card is selected. Place the deck down on the table, but place it down horizontally. Now the reason for that is because after the card is selected, everybody looks at it. You just casually pick up the deck from the horizontal position, place it back into your left hand, secretly turning it over end for end. Now the card goes back in, and like before, it's the only card reversed, so you're ready to go. All right? If you know how to do a fan, not everyone knows how to do a fan. You don't have to do a fancy pressure fan or anything like that. You could actually use two hands to make the fan. Just hold it like this with your other hand, just sort of spread them out like that, and say, take any card you'd like. Once the card has been selected, it's removed from the deck. You close the fan like this. That secretly turns the entire deck over end for end. So now you could actually spread the cards on the table, step back a little bit, say put your card any place into the deck. When the spectator does this, of course, their card is now the only card reversed. So like before, it's easy to get to anytime you want. Now you might wonder, what happens if the spectator accidentally or purposely turns the card over end for end? Chances are very good they're not going to do it on purpose, because the audience has no idea that the orientation of the card has anything to do with anything. But by accident, they could drop the card on the floor and go to pick it up, and in doing that, turn it over end for end. Well, here's what I do. I would say take a card out, any card you like, but I want you to be the only person to see it. So slide it out of the deck by saying slide it out. That keeps it the same way. Pick it up, hold it close to your body so that nobody else could see it. Take a little peek at it, and then put it back down on the table. Really, there's no chance for the spectator to turn it over end for end. So they do this, they put it back down, you're safe. All right? And also you could say something like, well, to make sure I don't accidentally see the card, keep it very, very tight to your vest. All right? It could happen by accident that the card does get turned over end for end, and this is a good place to use what I like to call the double ready position. Okay, now a double ready position is a position of the deck so that you could have the card returned in either one of two different ways, and you've got both of the ends covered. It helps a lot if you have a deck that's a one-way back. Now a one-way back is simply a pack where you look at the back and you can tell whether it's this way or the other way. If you have a deck of bicycle cards, for example, you could put little pencil dots on it, or you get a little razor blade and scratch a little piece off on one side of all of the cards. So just by looking at the back of the card, you know the orientation of the card. A double ready position is something like this. Any card is selected. It could be turned over by accident, so I don't know which way it's facing. But I could pick up the deck, I look at the card, I put the deck down on the table, and when the card is ready to be returned to the pack, I say put it down on the table. So now they're not going to turn it over end for end anymore. But I see which way it's facing. If it's facing so that the wide end is towards me, I want to turn the deck so that the wide end is towards the audience, the opposite direction. So if it's horizontally on the table, I could just pick it up and fan them out this way. If it's horizontally on the table and the audience has the card this way, it's a very simple matter to pick up the deck and turn it this way. Either way, you're covered. Now, if you don't happen to have a table, and the spectator's holding the card in their hand, you can certainly hold the deck between your two hands like this. This is a great double ready position, because now I could either say put your card back in the pack here, or I could say put your card in the back in the pack here. Either way, it's covered. So you look at the back of their card, you see which way it's facing or oriented, and then you decide whether to have it returned this way or this way. So you're covered. Okay? Before we get into the actual tricks, I'd like to talk a little bit about a few miscellaneous ideas that are good to know. If you want to use the stripper deck to force a card, it's a very simple matter to have whatever card you want to force, say for example the Queen of Hearts, secretly reversed from the very beginning. Now, the card could be shuffled into the pack. It could be anywhere. In fact, a nice thing about the stripper deck is you could just look at the side and you can see which card is sticking out, and you can see approximately how far down in the pack it is. You want it to be in about the middle. It doesn't have to be exactly 26, but as long as it's somewhere near the middle. And put the deck horizontally on the table so that the wide end is towards the left, and the force card is the only card reversed end for end. That's on your right. Because the way to force the card is this. It looks like they're thoroughly mixed. You say, I'm going to turn my head. I just want you to look at a card somewhere in the middle of the deck. And you slap it like that. It's a very simple matter, just by feel alone, to cut the right side of the deck, feel that wide end, cut it so it's on the bottom of this packet, show it to the audience as the selection, and then slap it back down. So that's a quick way to force a card. If you want, you can even cover the deck with a handkerchief or a napkin. That doesn't interfere with the cutting. That even looks more fair. You do this, you cover it with a handkerchief, you cover it with a cloth napkin, you pick it up, you say, take a look at the card, and that's very fair. Your eyes are closed, your head is turned, it's covered with a napkin. They look at a card at random, apparently, in the middle of the deck, but it's a force card. Here you do a little something called the spin cut. What the spin cut does is it turns the top half of the deck over end for end. And that's in the act of just cutting the pack. So you lift off about half with your right thumb, hold a little finger break, holding the separation like this. Try to make it as close to half as possible. Your left little finger is going to kick the top half over to the left a little bit, making a step. Okay? Then the index finger is going to grab that step, pivot that top half around the middle finger of the right hand until it lands in the hand like this. Then the other half goes on top. So it's just an in the hands cut, but secretly you've turned the bottom half over in the opposite direction from the top half, and now you're ready to go. Here's a nice place to add in the Ireland shuffle. So they took out a card, they put it back in the opposite half. If they happen to pick the card from the lower half, just make sure they put it in the upper half. So whatever half it comes from, it goes to the opposite half. Now you do the Ireland shuffle. Remember the Ireland shuffle where you run those middle few cards? Right now it's still a divided deck. The difference is there's one card in the wrong half. So this is the selected card. It's the only card in this upper half that's turned over end for end. When you're ready to reveal the card, all you do is you cut the pack where the division is, and you do an end-for-end shuffle or a turn shuffle or some type of shuffle where you turn that one half over. So right now the entire deck is facing in the same direction except for the chosen card. So what it is, it's just a method of getting their card to be reversed without having to reverse either the deck or the actual card itself. All right, are there any questions up to this point? If not, we're going to go right into some tricks, and there are many, many tricks that you can do with the stripper deck. Well, now that you know everything there is to know about the stripper deck, let's put some of these pieces together and actually make some effects. One big category of effects would be finding selected cards. That's a huge category. Once you control the card to either the top or the bottom, how do you reveal it? Well, here's a very simple way. Let's say they pick a card, it happens to be that one. You secretly turn the deck over end for end in any one of a number of different ways. Once the selected card is returned to the pack, secretly reversed end for end, you can shuffle the deck, cut the cards, mix them up as much as you'd like. In doing this, you secretly control the selected card to the bottom of the pack. Then you can give the deck to the spectator, say, take the cards, concentrate on your selection, then hit the deck. So the spectator hits the deck, you say, what was the name of the card you selected? When they tell you, you explain that the card went through the deck, it penetrated downwards all the way to the very bottom of the pack, and then you reveal it. Now that, of course, is easy enough to do. You just control it to the bottom, and you present it as if the card is penetrating through the pack when the spectator hits the deck. Another very simple way is to have a card selected. We'll use the same 10 of clubs. It gets returned to the deck, of course, reversed. The cards are shuffled, but this time you don't even have to control the card at all. Wherever it is, you just leave it there. You explain that you're going to put the deck behind your back and try to find the selected card with the sensitivity of your fingertips. And in a way, that's exactly what you do. Secretly, when the deck is behind your back, you use your other hand to strip the card out, turn it over end for end, or face up actually, put it back in the middle of the deck. Then you bring the pack forward and you say, I believe I have found your card. Look what's happened. Every card in the deck is face up, with the exception of one card by itself in the middle. What was your card? They tell you the 10 of clubs in this case, and of course, that's the big finish. Once you have the card controlled to either the top or the bottom, you can actually put the entire deck into your pocket. Now, this is a great thing. Put the deck in your own pocket. You show your hands empty. Let's say the card is controlled to the bottom, the 3 of hearts. You say, I'm just going to reach into my pocket with my eyes closed and pull out one card. Well, all you do is you pull off the bottom card, you turn it over, and the effect is that the selected card was lost in the pack. You put the whole deck in your pocket, and just by reaching into your pocket, you pull out one card. That's the selection. If you'd like, you can do this exact same trick using a spectator's pocket. Now, if I was to use the spectator's pocket, I think I would rather control the card to the top of the deck. That way you could put it in the spectator's pocket with the back of the card towards the spectator's body. This way your right hand is empty. You reach into their pocket, usually their front shirt pocket. You just grab this card, pull it out, and that way the back is towards the audience. That gives you that extra little delay. And then you turn it over and show it as the selection. Here's a wonderful trick called the eyes have it. That's what it's called, the eyes have it. What you do is you have a card selected, and as usual, you secretly turn the deck over, or you somehow get the spectator to turn their card over. When the card is replaced, you try to get it somewhere in the upper half. I try to put it about 10 or 15 cards or so from the top. You can leave it there, or you could shuffle it and put it anywhere, but when you're about to reveal the selected card, all you do is you cut it so that it's approximately 10 cards or so from the top. Now, I could do one of two things. I can either look at this corner here, and I can see the first card, that is the first narrow card in the wide end of the deck. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm looking at this corner as I deal the cards face up on the table, or I could actually spread them from hand to hand. And while the spectator is looking at the cards, I say, I'm looking at your eyes. And I can tell just by the look in your eyes, your pupils will dilate just a little bit more when we get to the one card you selected. And sure enough, as soon as you pass by the card that they selected, you say, there it is. I see your eyes got a little bit wider. And that's how you find the card. Of course, the eyes have absolutely nothing to do with it. What you're doing is you're looking for the one card that's reversed in the pack. Another presentation on this, instead of looking at their eyes, you can say, well, I'm looking at your face. See if you have a good poker face. So their card is selected. It's lost in the deck. You see, just by looking at your face or your body language, I'm able to tell which card you selected. A nice variation on this is something we call the circus card trick. Same idea. The card is selected. It gets returned to the deck. I like to control it somewhere near the top. Now, right now, I would guess it's probably about 15 from the top. I'll cut a few cards off, so maybe right now it's about 10 or so from the top. But what I would do is whatever card I think it is, whatever location I think it is in the pack, I would name a number a little bit higher. So if I think it's basically 10, I'd say concentrate on your card. I'm going to look through the deck. I believe... yes, I've got it. And then you name a higher number. So I would say 15. Watch closely. I'm going to deal the cards one at a time face up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I will bet you that the next card I turn over will be the card you selected. Well, of course, everybody thinks that you already passed it. They're assuming you're going to turn over this card. Once the bets have been collected, you casually put this back, you turn over this one, and you win. Now, all this is once again, while you're dealing the cards face up, I'm looking here at this corner, and I can see that's facing the same way as that one, as that one, as that one. All of these cards are facing the same way until I see one, and there it is. The one card that's got a corner that's a little bit shorter than the rest. I know that's the selection, but I deal it face up and then pass by it without hesitating, without pausing, until I get right before the number I named, giving the impression that that's the card I'm going to turn over next. When they say 15 and you already turned it over, you go like this and you've got it. You never, ever miss. Now, a nice thing about this also is you can do this with your eyes closed. You don't even have to look. Once again, the card is lost in the deck. It's secretly reversed. What I would do in this case, if I wanted it with my eyes closed, is this. I hold the deck here. I pull it back just a little bit so it's in-jogged, and then I lift up on the jog so I've got a break. So right now I've got a little finger break. With my eyes closed, I can feel, nope, 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 nope. As soon as I get close, I can feel that one card as it leaves the tip. There it is, right there. And I would say, that's it, your card. So with your eyes closed, with your head turned, dealing the cards face up, you say, concentrate. I'll pick up psychic vibrations and find the card you selected. Let me go grab a card box, and I'll show you another little trick. With a card box, you could perform a wonderful little mystery called the lazy card. A nice presentation on this is to ask a specific spectator, say, do you have trouble getting up in the morning? Most people will say yes. You say, this trick is for you. Take any card from the deck, and that represents yourself. So they take out a card, let's say, for example, it's the King of Diamonds. As always, turn the deck over end for end, have the card replaced in the pack, and it's lost. So you don't really have to control it. You leave it in the middle, but unbeknownst to the audience, it's secretly reversed. Now what you do is you place the deck into the box like this. You say, now that's what I do every night. I put the deck to sleep. They have a good night's sleep, and the next morning it's time to get up and go back to work. Well, what I do is I take the deck out of the box like this, and you go through the deck and you say, what was the name of the card you selected? Well, when they tell you, you look through and you find that their card is missing. Oh, that's the lazy card. It always has a hard time getting up in the morning. That's the one card that likes to stay back home in bed. And there it is. This actually works by itself. A funny thing about this, I read this in a magazine, and it said what you have to do is you have to split the card box. You have to get sandpaper or a razor blade, and you have to make the cardboard thinner on both of these ends. That way you can squeeze and actually hold that stripped card inside the box. Well, depending on how gross or how fine your stripper deck is, you don't have to do that. If you have a card reversed end for end, you put the deck into the box so that the wide end of the selected card goes in first. So it's the narrow end of the deck, but the wide end of the selected card. Close the box like this. You talk about putting the cards to bed for the night. The next morning, all you do is you grab the box here, thumb and middle finger. You open up the box and you just dump the cards out. But if you hold tight enough, you can actually hold that one card inside. It gets stripped right out of the middle and it stays in the card box. So that's a little something called the lazy card. Not to be confused with the private eye cards. Now, the private eye cards is completely different. This is a lovely trick. You say private eye cards, 2 cards in the deck. These are called the private eyes. They're the one-eyed jacks. The Jack of Hearts and the Jack of Spades. I call them the private eye cards, the detective cards. They will find the criminal, or the royal mounties will always get their man, whatever you want to present it as. Any card is selected, that's going to be the bad guy. And what happens is this. This card goes back into the deck anywhere in the middle, like this. So I know that it's reversed, and I know it's in the middle. Then what you do is you take the 2 private eye cards, you place those into the deck face upwards, one near the bottom, one near the top, like that. Now you say, all I have to do is give the deck a quick little shuffle or 2, let the spectator cut the deck, and almost as if by magic, those 2 face-up, one-eyed jacks will search through the pack, high and low. They will seek out and locate one very specific card. And as you spread through the deck, you'll see they are face-up together in the middle with one card trapped between them. And wouldn't that be amazing if that was the freely selected card? Absolutely. Works every time. This is almost self-working. Once again, you have the cards selected from the deck, and as always, you turn the deck over end for end. So when the selected card, in this case the King of Spades, goes back into the middle, it's in the opposite direction. So all I know is it's somewhere near the middle, and it's in the opposite direction. Now the two face-up jacks, they also go into the deck in the opposite direction. So not only are they face up, but the wide ends of the cards are closest to me, which is the same as the selected card. So one goes near the bottom, one goes near the top, face up, and they get squared in like this. Now you've got three cards that are reversed. A face-up jack up in the upper group, the selected card which is face down in the middle somewhere, and the second face-up jack in the lower group. All you have to do is hold the deck by the ends, and with one strip, all three of those cards will come out together. The two face-up jacks and the one face-down selection in between. That goes to the bottom as you continue a Hindu shuffle. You put the deck down on the table, let the spectator cut the pack anywhere. And the only reason for doing this is so that'll put that sandwich into the middle of the pack. Now you talk about the Canadian Royal Mounties, or you talk about the private eye cards, searching through the deck high and low, and they trap one card between them. For your big finish, you show that the one card trapped between the face-up private eye cards is the freely selected card. Here's a little trick called almost a transposition. This is a nice trick because it has a double lift in it, but it's the easiest double lift in the world. First thing you do is you start with any card reversed. Now you could use an obvious card like the Ace of Spades. Yeah, I'll use the Ace of Spades. So you start with the Ace of Spades on the top of the deck, and it's the only card reversed. This is your secret preparation. The audience knows nothing about this. Okay? So you shuffle the deck all you'd like, as long as you keep that Ace of Spades reversed on the top of the pack. Any card is selected. Let's say, for example, this one. What you do is you square up the deck, you turn the deck over end for end, and then you do this. You want to have the selected card replaced right above your reversed Ace of Spades. Okay, so you turn the deck over end for end. You cut the top half of the deck off the top like this into your left hand, and you say, put your card back. So the spectator's reversed card is directly on top of the reversed Ace of Spades. You cover it up like this. It looks like the spectator's card is hopelessly lost. Now what the audience does not know is that secretly in the middle of the deck are two cards together that are reversed. The lower one is the Ace of Spades. The upper one is the selected card. Now here's what's so nice about that. You have the cards, you hold them so that the wide end of the deck is away from you, the narrow end of the deck is towards you, and you can either strip the card out, or what I like to do is to cut the deck at this point. What that does is that puts the two reversed cards on the top. Now think about this. If you have two reversed cards on the top, it's a very, very easy matter to grab those and show them as a double lift. So it looks like the Ace of Spades. Actually, the Ace of Spades was the second card from the top. The chosen card's on the top. So here's the effect. You say, I cut the deck, and that brings the Ace of Spades to the top. Was that your card? They will say no. You say, oh, all right, well, let me try it again. Cut the deck. All I have to do is go like this, and I believe that brings your card to the top. You show the Ace of Spades again. Now you say, now that raises an interesting question. If this is the Ace of Spades, the card I placed here, what card must this be? And then they tell you the name of the card they selected, and you've got yourself a wonderful, wonderful transposition effect. Here's another entirely different category of card tricks, and that would be gambling effects. Things like poker deals or cutting the aces, that type of thing. This first one is actually a demonstration of pure skill. You talk to the audience about how professional, absolute experts at card magic or card table technique have to practice cutting exactly 26 cards. It's a very important technique to learn, how to cut exactly in the middle of the deck. And to demonstrate, you use a pack of cards. You show that they're very well mixed. In fact, if you'd like, you can mix them again right in front of the audience, because it's not the order of the cards that's important. What is important is the exact number. And the effect is simply this. You put the deck on the table with nothing more than just one little cut. I have cut exactly half the deck, and I could count these and they'd be exactly 26 cards. The way this works is your setup is this. You secretly turn half the deck in one direction. The other 26 cards are in the opposite direction. So obviously, if you have the deck here, You can either use your right hand or your left hand, whatever side has the wide end of the deck. If it's on this side, I pick it up very lightly, and I'm picking up all of the cards at the wide end. So there's 26 cards here. If you want to use your other hand, just make sure that the wide end of the deck is on that side. Just lift up gently. You can almost not do it. It's difficult to not cut at the right spot. So try this a few times and you'll see how easy this is. Now here's a nice place to use the Ireland shuffle. Do you remember that? The Ireland shuffle. Don't forget you've got 26 cards in one direction, 26 cards in the other direction. You show the deck is well mixed, but here's a nice subtlety. You can pick them up and you can give them a quick little Ireland shuffle. Remember that? So now, even though they've just been shuffled again, you still have 26 cards in one direction, 26 cards in the other direction. You've just changed the positions of the two halves. That's all. That doesn't matter. When you're ready to do this trick, you put the deck on the table. You can close your eyes. You can turn your head away. You say, just with the sensitivity of the fingers, you can cut exactly 26 cards. Let the spectator count. That's a very impressive demonstration. They will see exactly 26 cards every single time. If you want to jazz this up a little bit, how about this as an idea? Start with the deck separated, 26, 26, but they're not red and black cards. They're random cards, so you can turn them face up. So look at this. It's a totally shuffled pack of cards. Not only that, but you can shuffle the cards this way. Now, doesn't that look fair? It's a thoroughly shuffled pack of cards. You can shuffle them this way. You could do strip shuffles. You could do all kinds of shuffles. But anytime you're ready to do this demonstration trick, you can even finish off with the Ireland shuffle, because what I've just done is I've stripped all of the cards end for end, and I'm finishing with an Ireland shuffle. So though it looks extremely fair, you have separated one half from the other. So you're ready at any time to hold the deck on the table without even looking, just lifting up and counting exactly 26 cards. So I know some people would be tempted to say, hey, not only could you cut exactly 26 cards, but you could cut all the red cards away from the black cards. Personally, I think that's gilding the lily. That's going a little bit too far. If this is going to be a demonstration of skill and your ability to cut exactly 26 cards, don't muddy up the effect by trying to make it even better than that by separating the reds from the blacks. I'd say save that for a completely different effect. Here's a version of a gambling type trick where the spectator does the magic. The setup in this case is to have all of the aces reversed in the opposite direction. So that's all you have to do to prepare, is you just make sure the 4 aces are turned over end for end. Once you've got this, the cards could be shuffled and cut as much as you'd like. When you're ready to do the trick, all you have to do is get those 4 aces to the top of the deck. Simple enough. They're shuffled some more. I would normally shuffle them to the bottom. They are on the bottom now. And then I'd turn the deck over end for end and either cut or do another Hindu shuffle. Right now the 4 aces are on the top. Give the deck to the spectator. Now I'll show you just so that you know. Nobody knows that the 4 aces are on the top except you. This is what you tell the spectator to do. You say, remember, the cards have been shuffled, they've been cut. I would like you to just call out the word stop. Now the spectator can do this, or you can do this yourself. Anytime they say stop, you stop, and you say, I will eliminate the rest of the deck. We don't use them. But we need 4 cards, only 4 cards. So this packet of cards that you said stop on, we're going to deal 4 packets. Now remember, it doesn't matter how much the cards were shuffled or cut. You said stop anywhere you wanted. I just made 4 piles of cards with the cards you decided to use. A little bit of magic. You turn over the top card of each pile, and voila, the 4 aces. Well, this is the old double deal trick, and it's a technique that pretty much works all by itself. Whichever cards start on the top of the deck, those will be the cards that end up on the top of each packet. Okay? So for example, the 4 aces, remember, they were reversed in the deck, they were shuffled, they were cut. Eventually they end up on the top. You could let the spectator do this, or you could do it yourself. I would deal 2 more. So there's 4 cards on the table. I'm dealing little packets. This sort of gives you a good amount of cards to work with. So the spectator calls out stop. You get rid of the rest of the deck. Now remember those first 4 aces that were dealt onto the table first? Those are obviously now the bottom cards of this packet on the table. So that means when you deal these into 4 packets like this, alternating 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way through, the last 4 cards that you deal will be the bottom 4 cards of this packet, which of course are the 4 aces. So automatically you end up with 1 on top of each group. So try to see what this looks like from the spectator's point of view. You showed a deck, They were thoroughly shuffled. You shuffled them several times. You cut them several times. You had the spectator say stop at any point. You got rid of the rest of the deck. And then you took the cards where the spectator said stop. You dealt 4 piles of cards. And as if by magic, the top card of each pack is an ace. And apparently the spectator did pretty much everything. Well, let me show you one last gambling type trick. And for this, the setup is you take the royal flush cards. The 5 cards that make the royal flush in whatever suit you want. I like spades, so let's do the spades. Ace of spades is turned over end for end. King of spades, queen of spades, jack of spades, and 10 of spades. So that's the secret preparation. The audience doesn't know anything about this. The 5 royal flush in spades in this case, those cards have been turned over end for end. So, like before, cards can be shuffled. They could be cut. They could be thoroughly mixed. When you're ready to do this trick, what I do is I explain that I'm going to deal the cards twice. The first time I deal, I want you to watch very, very closely. See if you see anything unusual, anything that looks out of place. So watch closely. 5 hands of poker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that look pretty fair? Well, let's see how well we did. You look at the first hand, and what has it got? Nothing. Ace high, king, queen. Oh, pair of aces. Actually, that's not too terrible. I've seen worse poker hands in my day. Next hand, ace high. Not so good. Next hand, what is that? Pair of 4s. Could be worse. Could be better. The reason, oh, pair of jacks. Actually, we're getting there now. And the hand for the dealer, nothing. The reason I did this is because I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. That was a strictly legitimate random deal. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cheat. But in theory, it's going to look exactly the same as the first time I dealt the round. Watch closely, see if you see any difference whatsoever. Are you ready? Watch. Very difficult. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that look fair? All right, I'll do it again. So you deal, once again, 5 hands of poker. In theory, this second round of dealing should look exactly the same as the first. It looks like I didn't do anything different, but I most certainly did. I just cheated. I did a tremendous cheating technique, and hopefully you didn't see anything. Right now, what have we got there? We've got a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, and a 9. A straight. That was strictly by luck. In fact, I don't even know what I dealt for these people. I wasn't really thinking about my opponents. I was thinking about myself. That's why I decided to deal for myself the ace, the king, the queen, the jack, the 10 of spades. A royal flush in spades. So the setup is you have the royal flush cards secretly reversed in the deck. Doesn't matter where they are in the pack, as long as they're turned over end for end. So now the spectator can shuffle the deck. You could shuffle the deck. When you're ready to start the effect, you have to have those royal flush cards on the top. One of the easiest ways to do that is to do a Hindu shuffle. That strips the royal flush cards down to the bottom. And once they're on the bottom, you just sort of square up the pack, turning the deck over end for end, and then Hindu shuffle them up to the top. So right now, the top 5 cards are the royal flush cards. That's where they need to be. Now you explain you're going to do the same thing twice. The first time when you deal the first hand of 5 cards, those are the royal flush cards. And then you continue the deal. There's the second card, there's a third card, 4th card, and 5th card. Now nothing's happening here. This is a strictly legitimate deal. And all you do is you show every hand. Hopefully, the audience will not notice that the bottom card of each hand is one of the royal flush cards. They shouldn't suspect anything because it doesn't mean anything. You haven't said anything about the royal flush. It's just a jack of spades. So you say, let's see, what have we got here? Nothing. What's this hand over here? You might have a pair. You might have 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind. Doesn't matter. But when you're doing this and you're showing each hand, automatically that puts each one of the royal flush cards every 5th card. You see what's happening? Now, when you deal the cards the second time around, you have just stacked the entire setup so that they'll end up on every 5th card. So now you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's reversed. That means that's one of the royal flush cards. There's the second card, 3, 4, 5. Third card, 4th card, 5th card. So remember, whatever 5 cards start at the top of the deck, you deal 1 round of poker hands, 5 cards, 5 hands. That automatically sets up the cards. So when you do it the second time around, you will end up with the royal flush every time. the Four Robbers. Wonderful little trick with a nice little story. And it's what they call a schoolboy trick because it's pretty easy to do, but it's even easier to do with a stripper deck, and the effect is even more convincing. You talk about the four jacks, you say, well, those are the four robbers of the deck. And what they're going to do is they're going to rob this particular office building. Now, each jack has its own special little job. Now, this jack, he always tunnels in from the bottom into the vault, buried in the ground. That's where they keep the cash dough money. The next jack, he always goes about the 12th or 13th floor. That's where they keep the jewels. Now, the stocks and bonds, those are always carried about the 30th floor or so. And the last jack, he's the getaway man. He flies in with the helicopter, and he lands on the roof. So what happens is each jack, each robber is doing his own individual job, and then all of a sudden someone, and we don't know who, but someone trips the alarm. All heck breaks loose. There's a mighty shuffle. Oh, it's a scuffle. That's what it is. It's a scuffle. Oh, who's going on? Nobody knows what's happening. The cops are there. The jacks are going nutso. And here's what happens. They're all going to apparently meet up on the roof and fly away in the helicopter. But one of the policemen discovers the helicopter on the roof, so they stake out the roof. Well, that was the plan. The plan was actually everybody meets down in the basement and they get away through the tunnel. And that's how the four robbers get away. Well, this is a pretty easy trick. Basically, all you're doing is you're controlling the four jacks. As long as they're end for end, it doesn't matter where they are in the pack. You can shuffle, you can cut as many times as you'd like. And you do this as you're saying, oh, then a scuffle breaks loose and, oh, everything's going crazy. And as everybody's supposed to meet up on the roof, you just secretly strip those jacks out towards the bottom. And you say, well, actually, while everybody was looking on the roof at the helicopter, thinking that's how they'd make their getaway, they all secretly met down in the basement. And that's how they took the tunnel, and they were free. So that's the four robbers. Now, another presentation for this, if you don't want to tell the story about the robbers, you can get 4 or 5 or 6 people that are all friends at a party. You say, are you good friends? Are you good friends? Everyone's good friends. Each of you pick out a card. So you have 5 or 6 different people, all one group of friends. They each pick a card. They remember their own cards. You put them all back in the deck. You shuffle the cards thoroughly. And then you ask each person to name their cards and say, let's see how close you are. Come together. And all you do is you spread through the deck and you find that all of the selected cards come together in one location. So that's a pretty good little trick called Come Together. Here's a little mystery called My Lucky Suit. My Lucky Suit. The secret preparation is you take any cards of one suit. In this case, I will use spades. And you secretly remove them from the deck. Then you place them back into the pack, but you place them in so that they're facing in the opposite direction. Now, a good thing about this is no matter how many times the deck is shuffled, anytime you want to gain control of those 13 cards of the one suit, you just strip them out. So you can let the spectator shuffle the deck as much as they'd like. When you're ready to do the trick, all you do is you hold the pack in your hands. You can do this right in front of the audience. You can strip them out to the bottom. And it still looks like you're thoroughly shuffling the deck. You place the deck behind your back, and all you do is this. At this point, all 13 of the spades should be together on the bottom of the pack. You take them out, turn them face up, place them back in the middle. Bring the deck out. You see, now remember I said my favorite number was 13? You turn the deck face up, spread them on the table, and you show there's about 12 or 13 cards together. Let's see exactly how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Your lucky number. Now that in itself is quite a feat. But for the big super sacco finish, you turn those 13 cards face up and you show that they are all spades. Now it's time for the big finish. A little something I like to call the oil and water deck. This is great. I did this at the very beginning. In fact, it's probably the very first trick I did. You show a deck, they're all mixed up, red cards, black cards, red cards, and you explain that you need the audience to use their imagination. Imagine that all the black cards, the clubs and the spades, those are all oil cards, heavy oil, crude oil, very, very heavy. Not to be confused with the red cards, which represent water, lightweight water, water from the Red Sea, perhaps. And then you explain that the cards are like oil and water. Doesn't make any difference how many times the cards have been shuffled. All you have to do is just wait a few moments, allow the cards the opportunity to relax, to let them rest. And this is a good place, by the way, to throw in an Ireland shuffle. Once you've thoroughly shuffled the cards, you let the cards rest for maybe 5 seconds at the very most. That's all it takes. And what happens is all the heavy cards, the oil cards, sink down to the bottom. All the lighter weight cards, the water cards, they will rise up to the top. So almost as if by magic, the oil and the water separates. So now we've got all the black cards together on the bottom, all the red cards together on the top. And that's all she wrote. Now that you know how the stripper deck is done, how it works, you see exactly how this trick is done. You start, of course, by having all the red and the black cards separated. You have one of the colors turned over end for end, and then you riffle shuffle those packets together. The reason for this is you would like to be able to show before you start that all of the red cards and all of the black cards are thoroughly shuffled together. This is important. Let the audience see that they really are truly mixed. Then you can pick them up. You could do in the hands riffle shuffles, you could do overhand shuffles, you could do Hindu shuffles. What I like to do is to do running cuts onto the table, and in doing that, I strip out all the cards of one color. It might even take 2 or 3, and it doesn't matter. Right now, I know for a fact that all of the red cards and all of the black cards are separated. It's all done by feel. But even if you're not 100% sure you got them all right, here's how you can tell. Hold the deck by the ends with both hands. Start to do running cuts, but instead of pulling them off the top, pull out the wide cards with your right hand. So I just felt that all of those wide cards came off the bottom. None came out of the middle. You could feel the difference. So that whole block of 26 cards came straight off the bottom. So I know those are all the cards of one color. Now, since these are all the cards of the other color, it doesn't matter if you mix those up. You're just mixing red cards among other red cards, or black cards among black cards. It doesn't really make any difference. Now, if you want to have the black cards on the bottom, which I personally prefer, I think of water and oil. I think of oil as black, it's heavy, it sinks to the bottom. So I just peeked at the bottom card and I noticed that it was red. You could leave it as red and show that the reds went to the bottom, or you can do this, which I also like to do, an Ireland shuffle. Right now, the red cards and black cards are secretly separated. The audience doesn't know this. But you can still give the deck one last shuffle. Remember the Ireland shuffle? I'll tell you, comes in pretty handy. Block, 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 block. When you're getting towards the middle, you run them individually till you pass the midpoint. Block, 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 block again. Now I put them down. I spotted a black card on the bottom. I know that all the black cards are on the bottom. Therefore, all the red cards are on the top. I take a break. I say, relax, let the deck rest. All of the oil cards sink down to the bottom. All of the water cards rise to the top. And that is the oil and water deck. Now, if you're like me, you prefer to finish clean. Well, a nice thing about the stripper deck, unless they happen to know about the stripper edges, they're really not going to be suspicious of the pack, or they're not going to find anything unusual. If that's not good enough for you, if you really want to finish with a strictly legitimate pack of cards, there are many ways to do that. A very simple, direct method is to force a card using the stripper deck. Remember, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Have one card reversed end for end. Cover it with a handkerchief or a cloth napkin, or don't cover it at all. Just turn your head, close your eyes, cut, let the spectator look at the randomly selected card. That's the force card. The trick is you have a matching deck. Matching back, matching color, matching size. Don't switch a poker-sized deck for a bridge-sized deck. And you have the matching deck, which is an ordinary pack, in your coat pocket. Here's a little tip. I like to stand the regular deck upright so that it's vertical. And on the top of the deck is the matching card in the regular deck. That's the force card in the stripper deck. Okay? So the effect is you force the card on the spectator, they shuffle it into the pack, you take the entire deck, put it in your pocket, but when you put it in the pocket, you put it in the same pocket that's got the matching deck, just lay the stripper deck horizontally on its side. You say, nothing in the hands, I'm just going to use the sensitivity of my fingertips, reach into your pocket, pull off the top card of the vertical deck, that will be the duplicate of the force card, turn that over, and it will look to the spectator as if you just reached into your pocket without looking and you took out their card. Well, that's the regular card from the regular deck, remember. Then you casually take out the rest of the vertical pack, which is the rest of the regular deck, put that on the table, and you have secretly switched the stripper deck out, the regular deck in the course of doing a little magic trick. Well, what do you think about all that information? That's a lot of stuff to take in. But you know what? It's all there. It's all good. It's practical magic that you can do to fool your friends and be the life of the party. There is one small favor I would like to ask you. That is, please promise to use your power only for good. Besides that, have fun with it, practice hard, and remember, when you do it right, it always looks like magic.